Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, January 23rd. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the Coach of the Year award, one of the awards that I expect to be one of the more competitive ones this awards season. In this segment, we turn our attention to the other two big awards for the non-rookies, the offensive and defensive players of the year. But before we get into those, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, January 23rd. But like I was saying, we are going to get into our third segment of the day here, the Offensive and Defensive Player of the Year awards. And this one is super interesting, especially on the Defensive Player of the Year side of the ball. So we're going to start off with the offensive side because there's a lot of great cases for a lot of great players, but I think we kind of have an idea of where this is going to go. Although you could talk me into a lot of different options with a lot of these different players. So starting off at number 5. At number 5 on this list, I'm going to go with Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had an amazing season. He's tied for the most rushing touchdowns in the regular season with James Cook at 16. He had 1,900 rushing yards, so close to the 2,000-yard mark where he would have been a two-timer in, because he did that back in Tennessee as well. Lots and lots of greatness from Derrick Henry and the Ravens, but I just don't really see him winning this Offensive Player of the Year award. There were just so many great performances from a lot of other offensive players, and because of that, I just don't see it happening. At number 4, I have Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, again, is just a little bit back in this race. He's a little bit further back in this race because he's not going to win the MVP, and there is, in my opinion, an MVP ahead of him in this race. There's 2 MVP candidates ahead of him in this race, and Joe Burrow put up the numbers. He put up the numbers to be the Offensive Player of the Year, which I think might get him a little bit further in this race, but because you're comparing quarterback to quarterback, I'm going to put Lamar Jackson just slightly ahead of him at number 3. Joe Burrow, like we went over in his stats, had the best ones in all of football at the quarterback position, but Lamar Jackson put up the 4th best offensive passing season in the history of the NFL if you go by passer rating, right? This is a crazy successful season by Lamar Jackson. He had 5,000 total yards. He had 45 total touchdowns, which just edges out Joe Burrow's. This is an elite season from Lamar Jackson, but there are 2 guys ahead of him for this award that I just can't see it going to a quarterback because they had such incredible seasons. And this is where I started to think about it, right? Coming into this award, it might be a no-brainer. Saquon Barkley should win this award, right? Saquon Barkley should win it because he is doing everything you want a running back to do. But the more I sat here and the more I thought about it, and the more I looked at the numbers, and the more I looked at the history books and everything, I put Saquon Barkley at number 2 to win this award. Saquon Barkley is my 2nd place Offensive Player of the Year award because he has a good shot to win it. And I would not be mad if he did, but he would be a lock to win this award. It would be a 100% chance that Saquon Barkley wins this award if he breaks that rushing title. He falls just 101 yards short of setting a new NFL record. And because of that, I'm not convinced he's going to win this award. And that's unfair because he still had a 2,000-yard rushing season. He still had an amazing year, and he deserves all the credit for it. But again, much like that MVP talk, he ran into just an absolute bulldozer of a season, of an offensive season from another player, a player who became just the 6th member of an exclusive club this season. And at number 1 for my Offensive Player of the Year award, the guy that I have winning it, it's Ja'Marr Chase. Ja'Marr Chase became the 6th wide receiver in NFL history to become a Triple Crown winner, over 1,700 yards on the season. He had 17 touchdowns, a Bengals record and a tied Bengals record. He had the most catches on the year as well. He is incredible. What he has been able to do this season, despite his team not being successful, is nothing short of amazing. Ja'Marr Chase deserves every single ounce of credit, and he won that Triple Crown award. If he had not won that award, I don't think he does it. But because Saquon Barkley falls just short of an all-time record, and because Ja'Marr Chase gets that wide receiver Triple Crown record and joins such an exclusive club, I have a very hard time not giving it to Ja'Marr Chase. Now, there's a lot of push for Saquon Barkley, and I would not be mad if Saquon Barkley won it again. I think they're both very deserving of this award. But I think Ja'Marr Chase is the better player this season, and I think he deserves his chance to get his Offensive Player of the Year award. And the Defensive Player of the Year award is also a tight race. There was no real number one that popped out to me. Again, 5 guys. At number 5, TJ Watt. He just shouldn't really even be in this conversation, if I'm being honest. TJ Watt is a great player. He's a great defender, and what he does on the football field is special. But he had 3 straight games where he was held off the stat sheet entirely to end the season. He didn't have his best season. He's a huge playmaker. He goes and he makes these huge plays, these game-saving plays, these game-changing plays throughout the season, but he doesn't put up the numbers. And I know numbers aren't everything. We've talked about that a lot as we go through awards, but there are 4 guys that are immensely more deserving than TJ Watt. TJ Watt, again, I'm not trying to take anything away from him. And Pittsburgh fans that are watching this, I'm not saying he didn't have a great season. I just don't think he deserves to be in these conversations for the Defensive Player of the Year this year. I don't think he really does. At number 4, I've got Myles Garrett, another guy that had an amazing season. Myles Garrett was amazing. Second in the league in sacks. He also was held off the stat sheet a couple times, though, and he was dealing with injuries. Myles Garrett, I think, pound for pound, is the best defensive player on the planet right now. Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons are guys that I think can fight for that number 1 title. I think Micah Parsons should have had some reputation, some chance at winning the Defensive Player of the Year award despite missing a lot of time. I would have put him in over TJ Watt because he just completely transformed that Dallas defense when he came back. But Myles Garrett at number 4, he just had a little bit of a down year. At number 3, I'm putting Zach Bond, the linebacker from the Eagles. In his first year coming over there from the New Orleans Saints, he stepped up big time. Zach Bond, 151 total tackles, 6th most in the NFL. 3rd most solo tackles at 82 in the NFL, and he would be the first linebacker to ever win this award since 2013's Luke Kuechly. That is crazy. He was a first-team All-Pro selection, and he deserves all the credit, right? Zach Bond has been the heartbeat, the center of that Eagles defense that, for my money, is the best in the NFL. He really started to come on down the stretch of the season. He deserves everything he deserves all the credit in the world. But there are 2 guys that I think are just a little bit ahead of him. I think he's a guy that could win this award. He's a guy that I would not be mad that win the award. And I think there's 3 guys this season that have a real chance to do it. Zach Bond and the 2 people ahead of him. At number 2, it's Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson is awesome. Led the league in sacks despite being on the worst defense in the NFL. And I think that's going to hold him back just a little bit. That Bengals defense could not stop a nosebleed at times, but Trey Hendrickson, despite that, was a game wrecker. 17 sacks on the season, the number 1 sack leader in the NFL, and he had 3 to end off the season. That's crazy. There's nothing more to say about this guy other than you need to pay him. And the Bengals defense, despite being awful and not having the personnel, he's the only reason that they were staying in games a lot of the time. He was a game wrecker, a game changer, and a game destroyer. He was the guy that people want TJ Watt to be right now. That's what he was this season, and I think he needs to get a little more credit than he's getting. He's 2nd place for me, only behind Pat Surtain II. Pat Surtain is going to win this award. I feel very confident in saying that. This is an interesting award. I don't really know how it's going to go, but Pat Surtain II, cornerback for the Broncos, would be the first cornerback winner since 2019 Stephon Gilmore. And I've drawn a lot of comparisons from Bo Nix and the Broncos this year to Mac Jones and the Patriots in 2019, and this is yet another one. You have a defensive player of the year level corner probably going to win it in Pat Surtain. He had 4 interceptions, and he just shut down every single receiver. He shut down, in my opinion, the best receiver in the league this year in Jamar Chase. He shut down everyone that came into his path. It did not matter who it was. It really didn't. If you were matched up against Pat Surtain, you were getting clamped all game long. He shut down Justin Jefferson. He shut down Jamar Chase. He shut down all of the best receivers in the game this year, and he was a huge reason why the Broncos made that leap. He was a huge reason why the Broncos are in the playoffs, and he was a huge reason why Bo Nix and Sean Payton are up for the awards that they're up for right now. I don't think they do it without Pat Surtain. He is my defensive player of the year, and he's my defensive player of the year by a mile. This is one of the awards that I don't think is that close. We look at a lot of these awards this season, and we say, hey, it could be close. I wouldn't be mad if a couple of other guys won it because this is a very competitive season. But I think Pat Surtain is the one and only guy that should win the Defensive Player of the Year award. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the defensive and offensive player of the years. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we turn our attention over to the defensive and offensive rookies of the year. The offensive rookie of the year, one of the tightest races ever. We had record-breaking rookie performances from 1 through 5 of these guys, really. The defensive rookie of the year also really interesting, with a couple teammates up for the same award. We're going to talk about that and more coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.